Well, good morning and welcome. I am glad that you could join with me today and spend some time together seeking the Lord's strength and being refreshed in His Word. Well, this morning I saw some video footage of a pretty awesome sight. It was a bus, it was one of these American school buses, and it was removed from the place in the Alaskan wilderness that it had been parked for the past 28 years. Now, this bus was made famous by the fact that back in 1992, a 24-year-old adventurer by the name of Chris McCandless died in it of starvation after 114 days alone deep in the lonely wilderness of this inhospitable land. Now, a book was written and a movie made about this tragedy, and it was called Into the Wild. Perhaps you've seen it or read it. Now, in recent years, this bus has become a kind of morbid tourist attraction, and people had themselves gotten into bother trying to locate it and to visit it. And so the decision was reached by the Alaskan authorities to remove the vehicle from its resting place. Now, it was the manner of this removal that caught my attention. The National Guard came along with a Chinook helicopter and lifted this large bus to take it to a place of safety. Now, when you look at the bus, you would imagine that it would be too heavy for anything to lift, let alone to pluck up into the air and transport hundreds of miles. But the Army helicopter gently but firmly took this vehicle's weight like it was nothing and moved it on its way. A massively heavy object was lifted like it was a feather. And this is all because of the capabilities of the one doing the lifting, namely the helicopter. Now, when I saw this, I was reminded about how our God promises to lift, to remove even our heaviest of burdens. But truth be told, we often imagine that they're too heavy, they're maybe even beyond His strength. But folks, Jesus says that nothing is too heavy for God, no burden too weighty to cast upon His shoulders. You know, a guy by the name of George Mueller was very well known in 19th century Bristol, and he was known for caring for the many orphans in the town. And people often marvelled at how he could remain calm and collected in the midst of such difficulty as having to provide for literally hundreds of young lives. Listen to what he once said. When George Mueller was asked how he could be so calm in the midst of a hectic day with so many uncertainties about his orphanage, he answered, he said, "I rolled 60 things onto the Lord this morning." So how did Mueller handle the burdens of 10,000 orphans? Well, he took them one by one off his own shoulders and rolled them on to God. Folks, sometimes we feel that our worries are too big even for God to carry. And perhaps we don't entertain the conscious thought, but deep down we doubt that the peace of God could ever guard our hearts and minds as long as this huge burden lasts. If that's the case, then Mueller has a word for you today. He said another time when speaking on this subject, he said, "It is the will of your heavenly Father that you are not to be anxious. If you roll the burden upon God and cast all your care upon Him, you will be free from anxiety, even regarding this." Folks, we cannot place too much weight on God's shoulders. Not one of our worries is too heavy for the God who has already travelled to the depths of our misery, has carried our curse on His back and thrown off the chains of death. God can lift whatever weighs you down this morning. Psalm 55 verse 22 tells us, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He shall sustain you." Well, I do hope that you enjoy the song I have for you today. Cast your cares on Him.